So, Mark, thank you. And I'll just give you a little introduction. So, Mark Howard is a licensed psychologist, and he's the founder of the Three Principles Institute in Burlingame, California. And he worked with Kaiser in their chemical dependency services area for 27 years, and also helped with the Santa Clarita County Drug and Alcohol Division bring the understanding of the principles in there as well. And you learned about the principles way back in 1982, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's been a while.
Yeah, you don't want to let the gray hair fool you. I started very, very young.
That's right. So, Mark, I know we had a little check-in beforehand. I love how you love your jokes.
I do.
So,
I'm the only one that gets a kick out of them, unfortunately.
so when we checked in before the webinar, we thought we'd just kind of start off with you coming across the understanding and learning from Sydney Banks and what the impact that has had on you personally and professionally, and see where that goes. Does that still work for you?
Yeah, let's do that, and then just see where that takes us. Wow, what a crowd! This is quite impressive. It's like, and my new daughter-in-law is on.
Oh, she is. Hello.
Yeah, Toyin over there on this one square. I don't see her, but yeah, we were just at her wedding a week ago.
Yeah,
it was
beautiful,
right. Beautiful.
I haven't seen any photos yet, but maybe I just haven't been up to date on social media if it's there.
Yeah. So, well, you guide me through this as well, because there's some things that I wanted to share about, my experience in meeting Sydney Banks. And I've shared this a lot, but I want to give it a little more context. So you see the power of kind of a spiritual energy. And so the context I want to give is prior to meeting Sydney Banks in an evening, a seminar that he was holding locally here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was I was a traditionally trained psychologist, and in those years, we valued feelings and emotions, and we developed various approaches for people to express their emotions, to get it out. And some of the ones that show you in a way how lost psychology and psychiatry was is that when couples weren't expressing feelings toward one another, they came up with this idea of a bataka, a padded, I don't know if you know what they are, but they're like a padded stick. And couples would go at each other with it to get the anger out. So, I mean, we really respected feeling. I saw that to be too lost even for.
I've heard about batakas on pillows. I've never heard about it on another person.
Yeah, I mean, there was so there were all these therapies being developed to express feelings. Like, that's the context I want to give you. And for myself, I got connected to meet Sydney Banks through a partner of George Pransky's, John Enright. And I called John for personal help, but also to just deepen my understanding of human psychology. And he had mentioned that Sydney Banks was in town and I should go listen to him. So I went to hear him. It was a 3-hour evening talk. And I had a realization or an insight. Sid would say that, I heard wisdom. I heard the spiritual energy that he calls wisdom. And in trying to explain it to you, it appeared. All of my learning in terms of helping human beings and understanding myself and other human beings was something that I had an intellectual process about. But this knowledge just appeared. It just came up into my consciousness with a beautiful feeling. And it wasn't even what Sydney Banks was saying. It wasn't what he said. What occurred to me, as best as I can form it, because prior to words, there was just this beautiful feeling of knowing. And what came to me was emotions are made up. And I saw that they're nothing. And so coming from a context where they were everything to realizing they're made up shifted me tremendously and led me on a course of discovery. And the other thing about wisdom showing up in this way that we call insight or realization is that it's true. You know it to be true. And I knew this to be true, although I couldn't understand it entirely. I knew it was true, deeper than any other ideas that were out there in the world at that time about human functioning and spiritual psychology and so forth. The other thing that I experience now in describing it to you is I left that meeting living at another level of consciousness, or seeing a new reality, a life where emotions are really nothing. The feelings are nothing. They're just created by the power of thought, so to speak, you know? And I was living now with that understanding. And so I brought it back to my work the next day. I didn't know I was bringing this into my work. It just appeared as I sat down with my first patient that I could not talk to them in any other way but to tell them about what I realized. So another thing about having insight and coming to another level of understanding is that it changes the way you operate. And I realized when I sat down, I was in another level of understanding. I could not talk to people the way I used to or help them in the way I used to. And, but that didn't faze me, and it didn't faze my patients the whole day and forever on. And it became more of a collaborative effort of discovery. So that was the initial meeting with Sydney Banks, you know, and I know a lot of people that, you know, first go and to attend a seminar of his do not find something that deeply, but I was really blessed to do that. And it set me on a course of discovery.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And how did it show up for you also in other areas of your life, not just at work? What did you notice from that understanding in terms of just general impact?
Well, there were several things that evening. See, when I saw that to be true, I think all of you that have had some wisdom show itself for you, some spiritual knowledge that you hold within you, show up for you, your way. I bet you that it fit everything of your life. I mean, there wasn't a part of your life where you could say, well, that's not true. You know, like, okay, at work, I could talk about feelings being made up, but with my wife, my feelings about her it doesn't fit here. So, and the reason that's true in Sydney Banks' words is because you've changed your level of consciousness. Or for Sid, he called it level of understanding, level of awareness. It's just that you're living at another level of understanding of life and the nature of life and the knowledge of what we truly are. And so if you're living at that level, it crosses all lines of your life. So it would show up with me wherever I was, in my family, in my marriage, at the grocery store. You know, you can't get away from an insight. And so that's why, you know, it just crossed all areas of my life, because you're living at another level of understanding. You're just seeing life in what Sid says is another reality. So it wasn't that I was constantly there. The learning took place in that I would kind of, let's say at the grocery store, be back in my habitual thinking of honoring my feelings. And then this insight would dawn on me. It would occur to me. And I could make use of it to look at people in the grocery store or the checkout person from a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
beautiful. And you talked about sharing this with your clients that you're working with, and as a licensed psychologist, bringing this into your work at Kaiser at the in Santa Clarita County. I'm curious how that experience was for you, because I'm surprised that there aren't more licensed therapists involved in the three principles community. It seems like, compared to, you know, other professions like coaching and so forth, that there's actually, in my experience anyway, relatively small numbers. So I'm just curious how that was for you to share this with other professionals in the mental health field.
Well, you have to see that I had no doubt. So I was living this, and I was continuing to live more and understand more, right? So that first evening shifted me a bit, but I had a lot to discover just from that particular insight, right? So, but I was living it and discovering more. And one of the things that fascinated me was that first day at the clinic, I had 7 people to meet with, 7 hours of therapy. And not one of them wanted to continue to work with me the way I used to once we started the conversation. The other thing that fascinated me was at the end of the day, I saw more. And, you know, and so I started to respect that as you live more with this understanding, more comes to you. Anyhow, so again, this insight changed the way I looked at my colleagues. So when we would have staff meetings prior to this insight, I would challenge all of my colleagues about their approach to things. And I would always debate them in this staff meeting. And when I went to a staff meeting with this understanding, again, it helped me because I started to get new thoughts about my colleagues. I saw them from another level of understanding. And what came to me then was they're just trying to help people their way. And I had a lot of understanding and compassion for them. So I lived in that. And I didn't say much about what I was finding and discovering. But 6 months later, a colleague came up to me and asked me what I was learning, because I was such a different person, and she wanted to learn more. And so we started to have a meeting once a week where about in a 2-year period, 8 other mental health professionals met with us, and we listened to the Sydney Banks tapes I had at the time, and we talked about it together. And some of those psychologists went on in that clinic to form different programs based on Sydney's teachings. But, you know, it didn't really progress. In the sense that maybe three other mental health professionals went on from this discussion and continued to want to learn more out of a department of 30 mental health professionals. So I don't see how, I think to me the field, I know that Sydney Banks talked with psychologists, and I was there as he talked with psychologists and psychiatrists, and my guess is they believe their way. And that's difficult for them to see it another way. They just see it, they put it into kind of another approach. Mm-hmm. But when I brought it into Santa Clara County, into the San Jose program, it just spread out through the community. And so people who were in nursing, people who were doing some coaching, people who were just in addictions and recovery took it much further. And in fact, the first group that met with me that first year that we were offering this as a program in this department, a lot of them. Kathy Casey was one of them, Gabriela Maldonado, Linda Ramos. So that really took off.
So I guess you never really know where the seeds are gonna.
You really don't, I mean, I think Sydney Banks came to that later in his life. He really thought that it would go through psychology and psychiatry, and then with some of the frustrating things that happened at the University of West Virginia, at the Roger Mills program at the Professional Psychology Institute here in California, I think he became frustrated with that and just went to the public in general.
Yeah, I guess maybe the public was easier to work with in that way.
Well, you can see it is, because my goodness, it's gone all over the world.
Yeah, it's growing very fast now. Yeah. So I know we have one hand raised, so I just wanted to check in. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we go to questions? Or
it looks like the sun's coming up. You can see.
You needed Angus to fix your lighting, Mark.
Angus, come on over. Let me just pull down the shade. Okay.
Go ahead. For those of you who weren't on when I was saying that there was light streaming in through the window and I needed Angus to put up the screen before we started the webinar. So yeah, so we have some questions. Do you want to go to questions, Mark, or is there anything else you want to share before we head over there?
I want to share one more thing.
Sure.
And then I'd love to go to questions. I really love interacting with people and hearing what you have to say. No one truly understands the principles. Sydney Banks has always shared the evolution of our consciousness is infinite. The evolution of our understanding of our spiritual nature and what we truly are a part of is infinite. So the reason I want to share this with you is because, when we started out in 1983 and I joined a small group of people here, part of the people in my neighborhood in this area were Linda and George Pransky and a few other teachers that have become more popular, and we would meet together. We didn't think we knew anything. And I think we stay there, and that's the respect you want to have for spiritual understanding, is that there's always more to see. Now, Sid said the principles are simple, and they are on one level. And he has just, maybe 2-sentence definition of the principles. But you don't want to live like thought. Like, okay, I know thought. I need to know more about consciousness or mind. that's not the way to go about it. You want to just keep open to seeing more and more about what Sid was trying to show us by giving us the principles. And I want to share this with you all as you're doing this program that's focused more on spiritual understanding. Because when we started, we didn't have all that's out there now. And a lot that's out there now can be interpreted like, well, that's what thought is. And I just want to be of service here to help you not get to think that anybody that shared anything about thought has seen really what that truly is spiritually. And I mean, there have been insights that are really helpful. I don't want to downplay that, but I want you to find your own way. And to find your own way, you have to keep seeing that there's more to see, always more to see. And you're just connecting here is putting you on the path of a discovery from within, discovery from within the spiritual energy that you are, and letting that show you more truth and facts about what we are truly a part of.
That's beautifully said, Mark. Thank you for reminding us and pointing us in that direction.
Yeah, that's helped me a great deal, you know, when he would say, you know, there's infinite levels of consciousness. You know, I think I couldn't get my mind, I still can't get my head around that, right? It's not meant to, you can't get your head around that, but it gave me hope. You know, it gave me hope that, okay, I can always see more. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always more to discover.
Yeah, it is very helpful.
Yeah. So yeah, I could hear from someone.
Okay, let's go to the questions then. So the first person with their hand raised, it's Andrea and Lee. Just let me unmute you.
Hi.
Hi,
There you
Rohini.
are. Hello, good to see
Hello.
you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you
Hello.
so much. Hi, Mark. So nice to see
Hi.
you. Thank you.
So I'll be in the background.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I've been working with a client for, I guess, about 5 months, and she's had an amazing transformation. And within the past, I would say 3 months, her husband has experienced a relapse, and a very, very heavy, severe relapse.
Uh-huh.
She's in the past, she had an experience of addiction, and I want to say it was 10, 15 years ago, and it hasn't been a problem for her since. So she's got this idea, which I 100% understand, that she doesn't want to treat him the way she was treated. Well, she was treated in a very traditional way, and my husband and I both worked in a treatment center at one point in our lives, so we understand that way of thinking. In understanding the principles and seeing the principles, where I'm, I guess, questioning myself is that I know that my position, my relationship with her is to continue pointing her in the direction of truth. Mm-hmm. And there is also this wonder because she's physically suffering from the experience with him. She's had an illness. Her illness she was actually doing much better. And then when this happened, it got aggravated, which is understandable because she's a very stressful home at the moment. So I'm seeing her go through this, and I'm staying in my lane. And I'm also, wondering if I point out what I see, or I continue to just point her towards the principles. And I know she's struggling with enabling, her definition of enabling, and really her own health is kind of what I'm seeing happen is that, pardon?
And our definition.
Yeah, and our definition, I guess. But because I see how sort of almost horrifically it's affecting her health, but yet she doesn't want to treat him the way she was treated, which was a basic, here you go, I'm putting you into treatment and see you next year. It's tough because also my job is to be the, sort of that the eyes in the back of her head, help her see what she's not able to see. So that's the situation. And I am looking for guidance, and I do appreciate it so very much.
Well, you have a beautiful feeling. And I think that's really being helpful to your client. I love the feeling you have as you share this. I'm going to talk from just making assumptions about what you're saying.
Sure.
And speak to that, and you let me know if I'm right to that. I think one of the truths here that you want to point her to is love and understanding. Sid always said that. Now, the understanding is that this spouse is like your client. Mm-hmm. They're the same. They're the spiritual energy using thought and consciousness to create a reality that they're living in. They're the same. And this husband is suffering from the thinking he's in, and is trying to feel better. That's the whole thing. He's trying to find a better feeling than he's in. And that's the truth that you want people, family members, to discover. Now, understanding that truth doesn't mean you don't follow what thought is giving you, like this is serious, this person needs treatment, this is hurtful to me. So even though you have that understanding, you still have the power of thought to see the reality of the situation, right? Now, the option you have for her is, let me put you in treatment and then I'll see you at the end, at the end of the treatment. May not be the most loving option to have, I mean, it might be good that, an option might be, let's put you in treatment and I will be there every step of the way with you, That might be, I'm just kind of joking around that a little bit, but it's more the truth of it, I mean, you want to be able to use the power of thought that you're seeing this is not good. But you want to be able to use the love and understanding to share that. And you want to have the wisdom you have within you to see what's needed. Now, again, somebody who's in relapse, and if it's severe enough that the family is suffering, they need help, They need that.
Yes.
And they need to be talked to about that from the truth, but also from understanding. And that conversation is different than when that conversation takes place from judgment and insecurity.
Sure.
And letting the love for one another guide how they manage the treatment that's out there. See, thought, because you have understanding, doesn't mean that you don't see through thought something's harmful or something isn't right. This person needs to change. That's why you're given the principle of thought, to know life. It's there for you to know life and to call it, as best you can from your level of understanding. Now, your understanding of the spiritual truth of life helps you use what you're seeing in a way that can be impactful, that can continue a deeper conversation between two people. So I don't know if that's helpful. Is that helpful to you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate it very much. It's been, it's the elephant in the room, and we've had conversations about it. And she definitely, she's so lovely and so loving, and she sees that it is that he is of that same deliciousness that she is, and that we all are. She so clearly sees that, and I know I so get her fear. And I also see her suffering, and but me seeing what's possible for her and her seeing what's possible in their relationship are two very different things.
So, again, there's many aspects to this, and I'm just going to speak briefly so I can hear from other people. The other aspect of it for me is I would want to know more about what's going on that she's getting physically affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. See, I wonder what is it that is going on there, so I could find something that I could be more helpful about. I can make assumptions, but I don't want to make assumptions. I want to hear it. And so I don't know that, and I'd be curious about that because I could be of service there. If there is an elephant in the room, you have seen it through thought, and maybe she's seen it through thought, and you got to take care of it.
Mm.
See,
Yeah.
it's kind to take care of it. And it's like if they go about it with love and understanding, that'll take care of whatever treatment approaches this person starts to find. Because see, what her husband needs to see is that what's creating the suffering is his insecure level of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Ultimately, that's what he has to see.
Yes.
The other piece is he has to see that he has what he's looking for already. He already has the contentment, well-being, peace of mind he's looking for already. So he's got to get somewhere where he can begin to hear that.
Yes.
Staying in the cycle and no one talking about it or pointing it out doesn't allow the opportunity for him to hear it. Now, if you could approach it with that level of love and understanding, he may hear something that moves him.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you. I do appreciate that.
You're welcome. You've got a great feeling, so I know that's going to be guiding you through this.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Thank you, Mark. And thank you so much, Rohini. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Andrea, for your question. Take care. Bye, Andrea Lee. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so the next person with their hand raised is Monique. Let me unmute you. Hi, Monique.
Hi, Rohini. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Oh, hi, Monique.
Hi, Mark. I live in Berkeley, California, so not too far from you. And I am in graduate school in psychology. And I get really excited when another psychologist comes on because I'm finding that this understanding is not known in the general world of psychotherapy, especially in school. And I'm kind of having a hard time of it. I'm learning a lot of the traditional stuff, and I'm about to start my Jungian psychology class next week, and lots of archetypes and shadow work and all this stuff. And when I've talked to some of my professors about this understanding, they're like, well, this sounds like the it's all in your head theory, or or they say, how is it helpful that it's all thought? Like, they don't see how that's really going to help anyone. And they also, they're very touched by, my understanding that people are whole and healthy underneath their thinking, but they say, well, none of your clients are going to believe that. So, good luck with that. So, I don't know, I have to do a practicum in a year and then a supervised internship for years, and I'm a little worried about how that's going to go. And I just wondered if you have any advice for somebody who's navigating the traditional psychotherapy world. If this answer is not interesting to anyone but me, I can also send you an email and we can maybe talk about it that way. But I'm just, any advice would be great.
Well, I think it covers a few things, because I think that it's true around our community. You live in a community, and you know, most people in our community have little knowledge of what we have seen. You're right. So I want to start with what I wanted to share also here today on the call, and that is, you've seen something. You've been blessed to see something about our true nature. And you're most impactful if you talk there. If you talk to your professors or your supervisors from that, that's where the conversation should start. And there's no right way to share this understanding. It's just your way, you see. So when you're, all of you, when you're in life and you're sharing from that understanding in you, you have to share what you see now. Not even what you saw yesterday, or, you know, what Dick and Bettinger had to say. So what I hear from you is that your professors were touched when you talked about the health in people, that you must have seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where you start your conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You don't start your conversation with the principles.
Right.
To me, that would even be difficult for me to start the conversation. You know, well, here's these three principles. You know,
No,
people
I've never
would,
even mentioned the three principles.
yeah, no, okay. But I want you to see that first of all, you want to start your conversation with what you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the courses you take, there's grains of truth in them. And you just want to see that you're on a course to to finally get to a career you want to practice in, and try to find the grain of truth in what some of these theorists have seen. The other thing about the courses is they help you toward, you know, toward you being able to get a license, because most of the license exams follow traditional teaching, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just kind of take it like, you'd love to have it be different than it is, but this right now is still the path toward you wanting to be a licensed psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And what helps is to see the grain of truth in what you're reading. And now, the other thing for everybody, you want to see that every approach is a form. Every approach out there is the form that Sid talks about, including the ideas that three principles people have shared, including my ideas. They're a form.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to be careful to use the form only as a guide to your seeing something from within you. Because it's easy to think about people in terms of shadows and, you know, whatever Jungian forms came up with. You know, that's just what he came up with to try to describe something. And people are following the form. And what we are doing is talking to people and pointing them toward the spiritual energy.
Yeah, that was part of the kind of warnings that I got from my professors, is that, you know, we're not in the business of, you know, selling spirituality was what they told me. And that I need to be careful because people come from different religious and spiritual backgrounds, and I need to be respectful of that, and which I understand. And I think that, you know, learning the different approaches isn't something that is bothering me at all. It's quite interesting. It's almost like a historical background for me. But what I'm worried about is being supervised by people who are going to ask me to do certain interventions that really go against how I, am seeing it now. Like a very strategy based, very, working with inner child or certain things that don't really resonate with me anymore. And I mean, that's just going to be a hoop, I guess, that I have to go through to get the license.
Rohini, if you don't mind, do you think we could take this off?
Yeah. You guys can have a conversation.
So one of the things is I supervised, we were able to have two people who were at John F. Kennedy University in their program.
That's where I'm going.
Be able to be supervised by me in the three principles as part of their supervision, although they went through traditional supervision too. Let's talk offsite about that.
Okay, yeah, that's where I'm going is JFK.
Great.
So interesting, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's, thank you, I appreciate that.
At the end, I'm going to share my email, and then you could just email me and tell me that you're this person, and we could maybe have a conversation where I could help you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, I appreciate that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Monique. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, Tom, we're going to go to you next. Hi, Tom. Oh, let me get you unmuted.
Hi, Tom.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Can you see me? Okay.
There you
Hey,
are.
hi, Mark. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
I've been learning about the principles just for about 6 months. And Rohini has just been such a big ally to me over this time. I appreciate her so much, and having the chance to talk with you. When I first saw a video of Sydney Banks, I had kind of an experience where I didn't really, feel like I knew much of what he was saying.
Yeah.
But then there was this point that he just stopped and said, "You're looking for a feeling." And that really struck me, like a nice feeling. And you talked about that too.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I got hung up on in the beginning was I was looking for it to look a particular way, the feeling to feel like a particular way. And what I guess my insight is, what I've come to notice is that it feels sort of different at different times. Like sometimes it feels very big and beautiful, and sometimes it feels very quiet, like it's almost nothing, but there's always something there when mind prompts me to look for it. There's always a feeling, but I'm kind of curious about if you can say a little bit more about your experience when you talk about a feeling and a beautiful feeling and how you relate to that now.
Well, we're trying to describe a spiritual moment, really, honestly. So Sid was really trying to help us by sharing with us that you don't want to think about what he's sharing, because like you and me too, you won't understand it. But the other piece, this is the other piece, is that by the time he's got words for it, that he's trying to point us toward, it's already contaminated. He's not really able to share what he truly saw. So he's already a step away from the insight, huh? So if you pay attention to the words, you're not getting the depth because the words are already away from it. You see? Mm-hmm. So he's saying, listen for the feeling, which is what we will get when someone speaks to us from a spiritual place. We'll get something. And so that's why he talks this way about listening for a feeling, rather than listen to these words. And he says, that's the only way we can talk about this is with words. They're a guide. But see, the farther you look at words, the farther away you get from that moment of spiritual manifestation, huh? These are just words I'm using, right? You
Yeah.
see, but that's what he's trying to help us with. You try to grab the words, but you're already out here rather than here. But if you hear the feeling in you, which is really nothing, it could be, oh, yeah. It could be just a relief. It could be just a beautiful feeling. It could be love, you know. You got something.
Yeah.
So that's why he says that.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I mean, one of the things that's helped me, he guides us sometimes. He'll say, it can only be a positive feeling.
Mhm.
So that helps because, if you think you're getting an insight and it's giving you more anger, well, you're off, right?
Yeah.
I'm joking again, but that's helpful. Love and understanding. He always points us to that. That's helpful. I have a story about that occurring with me I was with my wife at the Long Beach lectures. They're on DVD, by the way, and we were there for that seminar. But in the first morning, he was talking. I couldn't understand him, but I was just filled with just feelings, just beautiful feelings with nothing. There was no form to it. And my wife and I said, take the afternoon off and come back at 4:00 and we'll wrap up the day. So my wife and I left and we were both I guess the best you can describe it is giddy. There was no form. We weren't thinking about our marriage. There was just no form. We were just in these feelings. And there was a wine and art festival in the town of Long Beach. So we go down to the festival and they had this popcorn, this sweet popcorn. I don't know if you know, I forgot the word for it, but they cook it up there. It's a sweet popcorn. And I was just in this beautiful feeling and they had these different sizes. And I said, well, give me the extra large. I was starving, And all of a sudden they keep filling up this bag and they hand it to me and it's as tall as me. And I turned to my wife and we're both just cracking up. We're like almost rolling in the sidewalk about it. So that's the feeling. There's nothing. There's nothing. Now later you make something because something comes to you.
Yeah.
But I wanted to help you see that when Sid talks about the feeling, he's talking about that moment you resonate with somebody speaking at a spiritual level. And of course that's gonna form into a thought, but you want to honor that feeling, not the words. Does that help, Tom?
Totally. And I can feel it as you're talking even now. So that's really beautiful.
That's it. See, what you're feeling is it. Now, Sid
Yeah.
says, once you have it, you've got it. Why look some more?
Right. That's right. That's right.
And it's helped me. That's guided
Beautiful.
me. That's guided me a lot through the years. I started to see early on that my thinking would get in the way of my wife showing me love her way. And I just learned so much by just staying with the feeling. Now, I was just at my son's wedding to my daughter-in-law, who's now on this call, and it was just in that feeling. It was in that feeling. It was just beautiful. And I was really blessed to live in that feeling. Now, once you are in love and understanding, you're there. And so when it appears again, live in there. That's what Sid told us, live in that. And that's really helped me through life, through my life, since that first night with Sid, is to move more is to just bring in more love and understanding. And he says, wisdom is there. Wisdom is in love and understanding.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I don't see any other.
Thanks, Rohini.
Oh yeah, thank you. I don't see any other hands raised. So if there is anyone with a question, please remember to raise your hand. And as I was listening to you, Mark, while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions or comments, what I'd love for you to share a little bit about is when you're talking about love and understanding, and you know how that shows up just in the realm of relationships, and what you said about how it would get in the way of you letting you experiencing your wife loving you in her way. Like, that really struck me when you said that. I'm curious what else you have to say about that, if anything.
Well, my wife said, "You're going on that webinar. Are you bringing up stories of us again?" You know.
No. Well,
But
you
know, that's been my teacher. I've had tremendous number of insights in my marriage, and it isn't about her getting better. It's about me, you know. It's about me seeing how I get in my way of having this beautiful, beautiful relationship, you know, the beauty of it. So I've had tremendous number of insights that I would love to share. But what I meant by what I shared with Tom was that, you know, early on, probably the first year or two in my meeting with Sid and a small group of us meeting out here in Berkeley, California, and attending Sid seminars and moving toward love and understanding, is I saw that I was raised in the 50s as a boy, as a man, and so I had a right way of how my wife should be loving toward me, you know. And I didn't know that. I was just living in that reality and that way of thinking. And in my discovery and my deepening my understanding, I started to realize she had a different way than I do. She expresses love a different way altogether than I do. But it's coming from that spiritual energy that we would call love. It's coming from that pure energy of love. Like my wife would do a lot for me. Now, again, you know, I hate to share myself, but I'm cured now. You know, I'm not this. You know, remember, folks, I'm cured. But I used to think, well, that's how she should be. You know, I'm thinking, well, how can that be an expression of love? That's what I think she should do. But all of that got in the way of my seeing when she was that way with me, it was love. It was love. And once I started to get eyes for that, oh God, I'm getting touched by it, but I just saw her differently. And I just saw how I was keeping myself from living in love. Like I was just, with the innocence of all of us, you know, we had these contaminated thoughts. All that means is we all grow up with habits of thought. We can't escape it. But you can begin to realize and discover that. And that's the curative factor of this understanding. And so once I saw that, I was like in a different reality with her. I saw that her generosity, which was like doing things for me, was love. And so I was just filled with that, rather than my old thinking of her having to change. I embraced it and and then I started to see that everywhere. I started to see that in my families. I started to see that in friends and their relationships. I started to see how love was expressed differently in the way that it comes out for that particular person. And it's the same thing for all of you with when wisdom gets expressed. When wisdom gets expressed through you, it will come out your way. That's why you want to stay with what you know and just live it. And just talk to people about it. Like I had a person that I was mentoring who wanted to become a practitioner show up. You know, she had children at a school, and she would come to the school, and the mothers would talk to one another, and she didn't know how could she talk to people from these principles. And we just started to honor that she had seen something, and she just wanted to tell these mothers what she saw, just introduce it that way. And it had tremendous impact. So you start to see love being expressed in many, many different ways. And then you feel it. You feel it. And you start to see how innocently our habits of thought hid that from us. Because we always thought, well, there must be one, you know, the right way to express it. And then you start to see deeper that we are all that energy, that all of life is that energy. Like when my cat comes to me and jumps on my lap to be with me, that's love. That's the feeling of love. That's the spiritual energy that she is a part of expressing itself. So you start to get this deeper essence of love being all around, you know, and that the only thing that interferes with it is our state of mind, you know, our level of consciousness at the day. I'll tell you a funny story about that. So, you know, I was really making changes, and I really being angry and debating left me. And this one Sunday, my wife and I were talking about something, and all of a sudden that habit came back. And I started arguing with her, and we kind of went down the tubes, and we walked to separate rooms of the house. And I just said, you know what? I'm going for a ride. That'll show you, in my mind, you know. So I get in the car, I back out of the driveway, I go to the end of the driveway, and my whole consciousness shifts immediately. And I just get filled with how stupid I am, how, Mark, you know, you lost yourself. Your thinking went south. And I'm at a different level of consciousness, and I'm back in, I'm not in that anymore. I'm back into understanding, and I don't want to ride anymore. I want to go back home because I'm back in this feeling of love and understanding, because I had the insight of what I was up to, and it shifted me. And I don't want to go for the ride. I just want to go home. But I'm caught with, like, how am I going to save face when I go back in the house, right? You know? But that's what this, that's what's starting to awaken in all of us, our spiritual nature does for us. It just corrects us very, you know, it's always there serving us and assisting us and guiding us. And to that point where I couldn't even live in these old habits that I had for, I don't know, 31 years.
Yeah, that's a beautiful shift. I love what you said about getting eyes for seeing love. That really touched me. It just helped me see how, from one level of understanding, it looks like it's not there, and then a different level of understanding, you see it everywhere. Whether it's, you know, with my husband Angus or just in life in general. So powerful.
Isn't that something? I think that's what's so beautiful about Sid sharing with all of us, that there are levels of consciousness. And he would say at times levels of understanding. When he talked about it as levels of consciousness, it was synonymous with levels of understanding for him. It was synonymous with levels of awareness, right? And isn't that beautiful? Isn't that hopeful? That, wait a minute, I'm seeing it in this limited way now, but at some point I could see it in this expansive, more truthful way. And then see it even deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
Now, it isn't like you work at that, because that would defeat the purpose of just enjoying what you have, right? But just to know that, wow, you know, in my lifetime, I might be able to have more understanding for this, or see it beyond a limited view. Yeah.
Mm. So we're at time, but we do have one hand raised. Are you okay taking that last question?
Yes, I
Mark?
am.
Okay, great. So it's Andrea and Lee. Maybe it's Lee this time. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh,
Yeah, we're swapped over.
oh, you went to the foreground.
Right. That's right. So I feel like this is a game of Jeopardy, because
Yeah.
I'm going to answer the question that you just answered, which was
Oh,
phenomenal, because as you can tell, this one here is a little love bug, right? You can almost feel it, can't you, even through the camera, you know? And Angus can probably appreciate this. I'm from England, and I have a really hard time, you know, I really care for people, and I know it's thinking, and that's it. I know it's thinking, but right? I have a hard time breaking through that. And like I'm saying, this is a sort of game of Jeopardy, because I loved what you just said. So my question would be, would you have any advice on how to sort of break out of that illusionary mold that I've created for myself, I guess, into getting into that, dare I say, state of love, I guess? I mean, I feel it, expressing it, I guess.
Let's see. So, did you already hear something? You said I've already answered it. Did you hear something?
Well, I love the fact that you said about that you felt the love for your wife, you saw it, and then you felt that love for your wife. And then as a consequence, you started to see it everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I heard.
Yes. And so you don't experience that?
Well, I mean, again, that's, I suppose I'm fighting with myself, because yes, and if I was coaching somebody else, I would certainly be connected and be open in a coaching capacity. And I guess I'm fighting to hold on to a previous feeling. I'm guessing, you know, it's sort of this habitual. I mean, if you've seen Downton Abbey, I know I don't speak like, Angus speaks more like the people from Downton Abbey, but but it's sort of this stiff upper lip, you know. One doesn't do those sorts of things.
Well, I'm only asking so I can hear a little more
Right.
of what you were trying to share with me.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking about. And I think, you know, I think it's that you're fighting with something, you know. I think you got to just stop that. And you just learn some ways of being. Like, stiff upper lip is just an idea.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you're trying to hold on to something that is a misunderstanding. It's like not true. It's just an idea you've been brought up to. And some of the things that get in the way of deeper love is being judgmental, or thinking you got the right way, or thinking you can't really show that. So my guess is just that you're like what you said, you're just up against some feelings. So what do? I think you're on the way to seeing something.
Right.
So instead of trying to figure it out, I would just stay reflective and ask the intelligence of mind to help you.
Right.
So what I mean by that is, if I'm looking to try to see a little more, I just kind of say, you know what? I just like to see a little more of that. Can you help me with it? And I just let that alone. I don't try to work at it or figure it out. You know, I just kind of stay reflective like that. That's what I would do. I think the other thing that's been helpful to me is always to go back to Sydney Banks.
Right.
And, you know, at night, well, I don't know when is your most quieter time. For me, it's when I'm in bed going to sleep, and I'll pick up The Enlightened Gardener, or I'll pick up Missing Link, and I'll just read a page or two, or, you know, that's all. I'm not trying to read cover to cover. And I get a feeling, and I just sit with that. I don't try to figure it out. And that starts to permeate.
I love that.
So I would stop trying to make sense of what you're fighting with, because you're going to stay at the same level.
Yeah.
What you're looking for is something at another level. Well, how do you get to another level? See, Sid said that's a mystery.
Right.
That's a mystery. Even for him, it's a mystery. But there are some things that I've found that seem to help me. And that's what I'm sharing with you. I would leave it up to the intelligence of mind rather than your mind.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that means getting quiet about it and just asking to see more about love. And I would use Sydney Banks to help me, because he wrote that way. He wrote to wake that up in us. And I would just go quietly with him. I wouldn't try to read even a whole chapter. Whenever you get kind of a feeling, oh, there's something here, let it alone, and just lie in bed with it. That's what I do.
I love that. I just got a fantastic insight from there. And that is, stop analyzing everything. It's really, that's really it, isn't it? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, that's it. That's truly it. Yeah, that's an answer we can all hear more.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you for
Great.
that. Thank you, Rohini.
Thanks. And I think I'm just going to put mute. Mark, I think that's a great segue to talk about your book. Is it a book club? How do you call your book study?
Yeah, well, there's two things. I do a yearly annual Missing Link, the Missing Link book, Sid's book, the Missing Link book group. And each month in the year, we gather like here, and we read through a chapter, and it's just awakened a deeper understanding for people that have been on the call. And we're going to start our 5th year in January. So I'm going to start announcing that toward the end of this month. But if you're interested, you could let me know, and I'll send you details about it. And you could just drop me an email at drdrmarkhoward@comcast.net. Just drop me a line that you're interested in that, and I'll let you know about it. The other thing that I've been doing for many, many years now is a once a month, what I call a teleseminar. It's free, open to anyone. And we just talk about various topics of life. And it's been really beautiful. And so you can register on my website, which is drmarkhoward.com. So drmarkhoward.com, and you could register for the teleseminars. They're now podcast on iTunes. So you could search Dr. Mark Howard on iTunes podcast and connect that way.
That's great. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there was another thing.
You were being quiet to hear me, and I was being quiet to hear you.
That's funny. And oh, my reminder, our the Soul Centered Series 7-month program starts next Friday. We're very excited. Angus is very busy getting everything ready for this space to be set up properly and lovely for everyone. So as happened with the early bird, most people, 3/4 of the people signed off on the last 2 days of the early bird. So I would love it if people didn't wait to the last few days just because we're doing a live event. So if you're considering the program, just let me know. Even just let me know would be great. We do still have a few places left. So we'd love to see you there. And if you're not able to attend in person, Christine Heath is going to be the next free webinar that's coming up on October 15th. So look forward to seeing you there.